Pound goal, the holier than thous.
That's right.
Steps up and delivers down. 50-50 ball. What a catch by Omar.
Rescue reports that he is on his way to the Milwaukee Bucks.
He's not getting his happy ending this time.
Okay, Thursday, December 21st. Justin, just me and you today. Zach is getting ready for Louisville taking on Kentucky in basketball today. Actually, I think the game isn't today, so he's pretty busy, pretty tied up right now. But me and you hold down the fort. Awesome interview coming up shortly in about a half an hour. Eli Savoie, we break down the Grizzlies, their game this past Wednesday night. Ja Morant's Tuesday night, excuse me. I think it was Ja Morant's return, his awesome game that he had, and then of course the buzzer beater that he had to win the game. Awesome resurgence of him. Talk about the Grizzlies in general, their season they've had so far, and of course their season coming up. Awesome interview with him. A lot to get into with the Grizzlies coming up with him shortly. I do want to touch base though, Justin, on some NBA news. We'll do that. We'll do also, break down some of the bowl games coming up here over the next week. Show Saturday, but we will have a best of show on Tuesday. And then, of course, we'll be back on Thursday breaking down the New Year's Six Bowls. But me and you going to pick two bowl games that really intrigue us in the next week, break those down as well. But like I said, I do want to start with some NBA news right now. Phoenix Suns, without their top three yet again, the team, of course, now is going to be out with Bradley Beal at least 2 weeks, sprained right ankle. Team one game above 500 and had expectations of a championship. Now I want to ask if this is still possible. I mean, there's a lack of chemistry. It's definitely taking a hit on the Suns. You can see it on their bench. You can see it when they play. I mean, their chemistry is just not there. And of course, now, like I said, they are without Bradley Beal, only a game above 500. And had higher expectations than this. Justin, what do you think so far about this team and, just their chances to, take the second half of the season, take these expectations and run with them and get to that point where the fans expect them to be, which is a true championship contender?
Well, I still think they have a chance to be a contender for the championship, but maybe not. Maybe they're just a 7 to 10 in play team in the in play tournament, but maybe they go up to the 4 or 5 seed. But maybe they're not the number one.
One of their
seed
biggest
in
complaints,
the Western Conference.
One of the biggest complaints on the team they had last year, of course, was they didn't really they couldn't really capitalize on fast break opportunities. Chris Paul, of course, not on the team anymore, but yet the team still. They rank near the bottom of adjusted pace in the entire league. That was one of the biggest critics of Chris Paul. One of the biggest reasons why Suns eventually did away with him was because his pace of play was too slow. And now, even without him on the team anymore, the Suns still rank one of the lowest in the league as far as pace goes. They're not assertive on offense or defensive glass either. Their rebounding is very bad. Yusuf Nurkic has been pretty anemic all year, considering all things considered, with his rebound percentage. Phoenix needs to rebound the ball better on defense, especially on offense as well. They can't really push the ball with the rebound percentage that they've been having so far. The Suns, Nurkic only has 9.9 rebounds per game. That's pretty bad, all things considered, especially with how dominant of a big man he is. So that's one of the things that they also need to really work on, is getting more aggressive under the basket and really racking up more rebounds. Lucky for the Suns, though, there's not really too many top heavy teams in the West. I mean, of course, the Timberwolves and ironically the Thunder sit at 1 and 2, but they're pretty much untested and don't have a lot of experience in the postseason. So if the Suns can play more consistent and sneak into the playoffs, I think Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Beal, once he gets healthy again, I think their experience will help them take them past some of these higher seeds. But they got to get to that point first. And I think for the Suns, if you're a Suns fan this early in the season, your main concern is, getting a top 6 seed in the West and not playing one of those dreaded play-in games where, we all know anything can happen. Other news, Cleveland Cavs also injury prone right now. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, out for an extended period of time. Garland fractured his jaw after colliding with Porzingis last Thursday, and then Evan Mobley had undergone arthroscopic knee surgery. What do you think about these injuries to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Justin? I mean, another team that had high expectations going into this year, and this is going to be a big hit for them. They entered the season with high hopes after winning 51 regular season games last season, and to earning its first ever playoff berth since 2018 as well. But what do you think about this Cleveland team after these two injuries coming here?
Definitely not good for the Cavaliers. Definitely not a team right now that has, with the high expectations, as you just said, that is below the fifth seed. They're the sixth seed in the Eastern Conference at 16-12. That is a big loss for them. Those are big losses for them with Darius Garland and Evan Mobley for a long period of time too. And hopefully they can rebound, but I don't know yet. I still think they could maybe get up to the fifth or the fourth seed, but they're
Donovan
not
Mitchell,
the same team they were.
Trade
last
rumors
year.
continue to spiral. Second season with the Cavs, obviously, but he's yet to commit to the organization for a long-term new contract extension. So the Cavs might have to face some hard truths and move on at some point, especially if they take a nosedive here with both Mobley and Garland being out for an extended period of time, because this team might struggle this middle half of the season here. And if they do, and they're pretty, playoff contentions look dim, or playoff competition looks dim, I think they might be wise to move on from Donovan Mitchell, and we'll see what happens. I know he's been on the trade rumors for the last 2 years now, ever since even going to the Cavaliers. So we'll see what happens with him, but it's going to be a hard span of time for Cavs fans, that's for sure, losing their two of their top scorers, and Donovan Mitchell is going to be asked to do a lot more now going down the stretch. Last NBA news, Pistons, opposite end of the spectrum. No expectations this year, but even falling shorter than those expectations still. Detroit is 2 losses away from tying the longest losing streak in NBA history. It's 4 away from the longest consecutive loss streak overall, which is at 26. I think they currently sit at 23. So actually at the time of this recording on Thursday, Justin, they are 3 games away from tying the longest losing streak in NBA history. Since the 2023 All-Star break, Detroit has played 50 regular season games and has gone an unfavorable 4-46. 4-46 over the last 50 games, Justin. Minus 12 scoring margin, and it's one of the worst teams in basketball history. What are your takeaway on the Pistons? And I mean, they're bad. Yeah. No one thought they would be this bad, though.
Brutal.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brutal. 2-25. Yeah. I didn't think it would be this bad either. As who was the coach? Monty Williams, I believe, is the Pistons coach. I thought he would at least turn it around in Detroit, but 2-25 being the worst team in the NBA right now, that's just not a good sign for Detroit. And they are probably going to have the number 1 pick if they win the draft lottery.
Well, the sad part
they're
of
on
it
their
is
way to
it's
a
not even
top
like
3
this is
pick.
their first year in
10.
the rebuild. It's year 4 in their rebuild. One they were pretty much forced into with limited assets after that disastrous Blake Griffin trade fizzled into injury. And this team has, like I said, they're not new into this process. It's been years now that they've been trying to rebuild, and a team that's 3-4 years into this process should still not be on a 23-game losing streak and be the worst team in NBA history. It's just absolutely abysmal. I mean, the problem is that the Pistons have 8 first-round draft picks since the reset in 2019 and have yet to land on a star. 8 first-round draft picks and still do not have a star on their team. Cade Cunningham, I mean, he has shown flashes, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to be that guy. And I think Pistons fans, Detroit fans would even say that too. And like I said, it's just been bad management, bad coaching, front office, everything has just been pretty abysmal so far. Scouts are extremely down on this season's crop, and one and dones, and you can't miss stars coming out on the 2024 lottery because, like I said, it's just going to be a rough stretch for the Pistons. So I don't know what they're going to do, but worst team in NBA history for sure, and the numbers actually are going to show that shortly too. Before moving on to college football, Justin, like I said, we're going to break down two of our most intriguing bowl games coming up over the next week. Of course, next Thursday show, we will break down the New Year's Six Bowl, but we'll go over 4 games between the two of us that we think are intriguing coming up over the next week. But I do want to mention one news of college football outside of bowl games that came up these last couple of days. FSU, of course, being the 5th seed, got taken out of the playoffs last ranking of the year, undefeated, and still were taken out of that Final Four. Of course, as we all know, a lot of backlash from that, angered a lot of people, a lot of social media and online talk and rhetoric about that. But FSU came out on Wednesday or Thursday today that they will be holding a meeting Friday morning to basically, in so many words, think about boycotting and think about fighting the grant of rights that the ACC has with all their media partners. Basically, what this would entail is a very long out legal battle. So the ACC has repeatedly said that this grant of rights cannot be fought, that it is ironclad, and that anybody that would like to fight it would be on a very, very long court battle that would be spanned over years. For the ACC or for the FSU to leave the ACC, that would be the first step. However, is fighting this grant of rights. No team has ever fought the grant of rights in the ACC. Florida State, as we all know, not even just this year, but over the last 2-3 years, they've been getting increasingly less satisfied and increasingly upset with the ACC. They're losing revenue against SEC and Big Ten schools. They're behind in revenue between the big powerhouse schools, and I think FSU looks at themselves as a higher tier team. So they want to get back to just more recognition that they deserve. And of course, this last year being left out of the college football playoffs, I think was the final straw for them. So Board of Trustees meeting Friday to think about fighting these grant of rights in the ACC and being on their first steps to get out of the conference that, as we all talked before, Justin, in the past on this show, we think the ACC might be fizzling out here over the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's probably going to be fizzling out, and Florida State being in SEC territory, they're definitely looking to go to the SEC. And there's a lot of SEC bias. I know that the playoff with Alabama in, Florida State, and then believe getting left out. Michigan as the number 1 seed. That's the Big Ten. But obviously with their scandal, Florida State feels betrayed by this. And they're not going to sue the committee or boycott the game or whatever. But they're going to leave the ACC, and I think they will be an SEC team because the SEC runs strong.
I think
Florida
the contract of the
rest
ACC
of
right
the
now,
Southeastern Conference.
with all teams in the ACC, with all their media partners, that this grant of rights that I'm referring to, I think it goes up until 2034. So like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a tough battle to fight this thing and get to the SEC like you're referring to, Justin. It's going to be a really long fought out battle, a really long fought out court struggle, which I don't even know if FSU wants to even deal with at this point. My last point, if they were to even win the battle, they were able to basically fight the grant of rights and find it, illegal in so many words. They still have to pay a hefty $120 million early termination fee that, of course, the school would be happy to pay if it means getting into a higher, better conference like the SEC or Big Ten. But it's not going to be easy for sure. And meeting Friday to discuss it more, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it come tomorrow about what ultimately was decided in this meeting and how FSU would like to proceed going forward. Moving on, like I said, today, 21st of December. Next episode will be we'll have an episode Saturday, but then we'll be back on the 28th after a best of episode on Tuesday. A lot of bowl games going on over the course of this week here, 21st to the 28th. We got, game almost in every we got games on almost every day in that span. What we're going to do, Justin, me and you, going to pick 2 games each, so 4 games altogether that we find the most intriguing from these games over the span of this week here. We're going to start with you. What is your first game that you find intriguing coming up, over this next week in the bowl games?
Well, let's start off with tonight's game with Syracuse and USF, University of South Florida, in the Boca Raton Bowl. On Thursday, Syracuse fired head coach Dino Barbs last month after his 8th season at Syracuse, and he was replaced by Nunzio Campitelli, can't pronounce his last name, who defeated Wake Forest in the regular season finale to make the Orange Bowl eligible before the program hired Fran Brown as its next head coach earlier this month. But Campanelli will be guarding Syracuse into Boca Raton on tonight, actually, against USF. Playing quarterback for Syracuse is Grant Schrader. He had a season of 13 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions. Byron Brown is the quarterback for USF. 23 touchdowns and 11 interceptions on the year. Both teams at 6 and 6. That will be tonight's game in the Boca Raton Bowl.
My first game I'm going to go with, of course, has to be West Virginia Mountaineers, Tar Heels, UNC Tar Heels. My Mountaineers will be taking on the Tar Heels in the Duke Mayo Bowl. I feel like West Virginia is always in the Duke Mayo Bowl. Biggest question, of course, Drake May will not be playing for the Tar Heels, and West Virginia is just absolutely terrible at stopping the run, which is easily UNC's best option in this game. That's how they're going to win this game. I still think UNC, as much as I hate to say this, will end up being over West Virginia. I think UNC is just the better team overall this year. West Virginia has definitely shown flashes, but like I said, they can't really stop the run, and UNC's Hampton is one of the best players in the league. So he's going to be an NFL running back for sure coming up when he enters the draft. But I just think West Virginia is going to have too much of a struggle with them. And that game will be Wednesday, December 27th. Like I said, Duke Mayo Bowl, North Carolina, West Virginia. As much as I hate to say it, I think my Mountaineers will be having a struggle against the more talented, all things considered, UNC team. My next game, JMU Air Force. The battle of the two FS programs that have arguments for that New Year's Six Bowl spot and should be facing off against Oregon. JMU, Air Force, both very upset that they're not in the New Year's Six Bowl. Both have a case, and both are saying that they should be playing against Oregon. Air Force, unfortunately, did have that late season slide, and then JMU simply got screwed by the NCAA rules against postseason for newly made FSS teams, as we all know. JMU is a different team with a new coach and some players in the portal. JMU is undergoing a different type of transition now with head coach Kurt Cignetti leaving for Indiana and taking 7 assistants with him, including both coordinators, and they will be gone. Offensive line coach and assistant head coach Damian Robleski takes over as acting head coach before Holy Cross head Bob Chesney comes in to take over the bowl game. So many staffers left JMU for Bloomington. That coach Wobo, who will also be the team's offensive coordinator and play caller for the game, had to hire 5 temporary coaches just to get through the bowl game. That's absolutely insane. There's going to be so many new faces on the sideline for JMU. I think JMU is a better team, but the coaching staff and the personnel they're going to have on the sideline coaching these kids is going to just be almost half new people, and it's just going to be a big transition to get used to. And I think it's going to be a close game. I think JMU will end up taking over Air Force, but I'm not going to be surprised if Air Force definitely gives a run for their money for sure, because it's, new faces and new places for sure for JMU. Okay, Justin, let's move on to complaintives before we get to our interview. Before we get to our interview with Eli, what is your
Oh, I got
okay?
one more breakdown of the
Oh, I thought you did it. Oh,
Arizona-Oklahoma game.
sorry. Oh, you were.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. What was your
yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Arizona
What is your
versus Oklahoma
what is your other
is
game you
the
want to break
other
down,
bowl game
Justin?
we were going to break down. Yeah, I have Syracuse. I had Syracuse in Florida, South
Tell me
Florida,
about.
and then now I have Arizona
Yeah.
and Oklahoma.
Yeah. I thought you did already. My bad.
Yeah, because remember you sent me the notes on that.
No, that's
we
what I
didn't.
just did.
I don't
But
think you
so
broke down JMU.
I
and
can
Air
cut all
Force
this, but
yet.
you did South Florida and Syracuse
Okay.
already, right? Okay.
Yes, and then Arizona and
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
so let me just start fresh here.
So,
And then I'll do
yeah,
I'll just do
I'll
JMU
break
and Air
that
Force
down.
again, just for continuity. No, you're good. You're good. I thought, because I think on the rundown it says
My bad.
Arizona, Oklahoma, but it's not a big deal. I mean, it's easy to edit. It's not a big deal. Let me just start
I went
over
to
though.
the bottom first.
Okay, Justin, what is your second game that
Okay.
you want to break down coming up over this week?
I'm going to go with Arizona and Oklahoma. That is a very big game. Arizona I have been big on Noah Fafita's play all season. Once he won the starting job, and he was elevated to the Wildcats offense on a level that was competing with USC, Oregon, and Washington. The emergence of the freshman quarterback has been huge for the Wildcats this season, which has been spectacular since he took over against Washington and in the final week of September. As the starter of each of the last 8 games, Noah Fafita has thrown for 2,446 yards, 23 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions, 73% of his completion attempts. Arizona's offense ranks 22nd this season with 34.3 points per game, and they should have plenty of opportunities against an Oklahoma defense that is going to be missing some of its key contributors. The questions start with Oklahoma on whether they can compete without many star players. Can Oklahoma's offense still perform at an elite level without Dylan Gabriel at the controls? Jackson Arnold has been incredible in his limited time leading the Sooners offense, but being the starter is completely different. If 15 bowl practices under the new offensive coordinator, Seth Littoral, are productive, the sky's the limit for what OU's offense is capable of. And I think hopefully they can run the ball here to keep up with Arizona, but I think this is going to be a very close game here as Arizona and Oklahoma get going.
I think so. Cotton Bowl, right?
The Cotton Bowl or
who knows?
not the Cotton Bowl.
Cut it out.
Is it the
Alamo Bowl? Got it. All right, I'm going to go. My next game, second game, want to recap. JMU, Air Force. Why is it intriguing? Well, Air Force, first of all, they're both FCS programs that had arguments to be in one of the New Year's Six bowls. Of course, Air Force dropped off end of the year. Once their running back suffered that. Well, once their quarterback, Zach Lair, suffered that knee injury, they basically ended the year with a 4-game losing streak. So once Zach Lair, I think you pronounce his name, once he had that knee injury, they went on that 4-game losing streak to end the year. JMU, better team, of course. However, their team is absolutely in shambles right now. They're going transitions on both the coaching staff and the players as well. JMU, of course, their head coach, Kirk Spinetti, he's leaving for Indiana. He's taking 7 assistants with him, including both of his coordinators. Offensive line coach and assistant head coach will take over as the acting head coach. And then Bob Chesney comes in to take over after the bowl game. But JMU, so many staffers left JMU for Bloomington. that it's just going to be a completely different team on the sideline. It's not, and like I said, it's not just the transition of the coaching staff. JMU has 4 offensive starters, including their QB and Sun Belt Player of the Year, Jordan McLeod, plus receiver Elijah Sarah. Like, he's leaving as well, and 5 defensive starters. So this JMU team is just a completely different team than we saw beginning of the year, and it's going to be just an ugly game, all things considered. It's intriguing, though, because I think they're both probably the 2 best FSS teams right now in the league. But very, Air Force ended the year very poorly, and then JMU is just going to be a completely different team than we saw all year as well. So it's going to be an interesting game for that matter. I still think JMU is going to take over this game and win, but yeah, it's just going to be an ugly game, all things considered. All right, before moving on to Eli Savoie, interview with him, Memphis Grizzlies, awesome interview. Justin, let's do our complaintives of the week. We'll start with you. What is your complaintive of the week?
So my complaintive of the week is Shannon Sharpe and really the media's treatment of Tua Tagovailoa, just to really cover up that he has been concussed a lot and really cover up for the NFL almost. That's suspicious, but Shannon Sharpe did say Tua shouldn't keep a receipt of his media doubters. That's what motivates great players to success, is when they doubt you. I'm sure Shannon Sharpe has done that. I'm sure other former players has done that. But Tua is definitely mistreated a little bit by the media. And for the Dolphins to get to the Super Bowl, I kind of hope that happens. I hope they win the AFC. In my opinion, I think that so Tua can really throw the dagger back in their faces, in their faces, and hope that the Dolphins can get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. I know Tua hasn't played a playoff game yet, but if they're the number 1 seed or they even win the division, they are going to have a home playoff game for sure. So I think Tua is a very underrated quarterback. He is no game manager. He might be in the top 10 for the Dolphins, not just with the weapons around him, but I think Tua is a successful quarterback, and he has stayed healthy this year.
He gets the job done. I mean, he's not the most flashy quarterback in the league, but he definitely gets the job done. And when he plays, Dolphins are definitely a better team when he's on the field for sure, and they're not the same team when he doesn't play.
100%. Yeah. And they are a flashy. I mean, he's not flashy to be honest, but that offense around him is flashy.
NFL suspending the Steelers, DeMonte Casey, for the illegal hit on Michael Pittman last Saturday. I mean, sure, suspend him, but suspending him for the entire rest of the year is a bit too much. I mean, he's not known as a player to be malicious. He's never been really a player targeted as being someone that wants to hurt other people or, like I said, have any harm on other players whatsoever. So to suspend him for the rest of the year and potential even playoff games, if the Steelers were to make the playoffs, I think that's ridiculous. I think that was way too much of a penalty. He wasn't trying to hurt Michael Pittman. Players anymore, defensive players in the NFL, just trying to make plays on the ball. Sometimes they're unable to, and it leads to targeting. But that's not a good enough case to suspend a player for the whole rest of the season. Maybe like 1 or 2 games, but to have him be out for the whole rest of this 2023-2024 season. And then again, potential playoff games as well in the suspension. I think that was just way too much. And way too much of a penalty for a defensive player. Like I said, it has no history of being a malicious player and was really just trying to make a play on the ball. All right, moving on. Eli Savoie, breaking down Grizzlies. Ja Morant's return. Marcus Smart soon behind him as well. Awesome interview with him. Without further ado, let's head to the Midwest and talk to Eli in Memphis and talk all things Grizzlies. Heading west, talk to recurring guest Eli Savoie, Sports 56 WHBQ, on air 1 to 3 Central Time. Eli, how you been? It's been 3-4 months since we last talked. How have you been? How have things been so far with you?
I've been doing good. Better than the Grizzlies, that's for sure, over the first 25 games of the season.
Well, let's get into that. That's why I had to have you on. Ja Morant, of course, came back Tuesday night. This will come out on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday, so the day after his return in New Orleans. Awesome night, all things considered. 35 minutes. I mean, more than expected he would play. I think you would say the same. 34 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, played an absolute amazing game, and of course had the game-winning buzzer beater at the end as well. What it just took me just through your thoughts just on his return, his first game back, how well he played considering that he's been out, since, even last year that he had that first 25 game suspension. I mean, were you surprised he played so much? Were you surprised he played as well as he did, even just coming back in New Orleans last night?
Yeah, I think the minutes certainly were a bit of a surprise, and probably even a little surprise to him. He talked about after the game how fatigue was real. Like, he was certainly feeling it at the end of the game. He talked about in the last timeout huddle, he had the massage gun on his calves because he was certainly feeling it, and he even talked about the fact that he, on that last play, kind of wanted to go to Jaren Jackson Jr., but then Desmond Bane kind of stepped in and said, no, you need to do this. You need to, make the play yourself. And of course, he ends up getting the game winner. But, last night just showed what this team missed in the first 25 games. And when you're without a player of this caliber, the difference that it makes, because Jaren Jackson Jr. was an all-star last year. Desmond Bane is playing at an all-star level, but there's all-stars and then there's superstars. And when you've got a superstar guy, these are plays they can make. You just put the ball in their hands, you let them take over games, and in the final minute of that game, that's basically what he did. He had the last 3 shots, including the game winner. Even as he says, battling fatigue, he's still that good. And, it eases the burden on everybody else. It makes life a heck of a lot easier on everybody else. And it just was a quick reminder last night of what it means to have one of those guys. There's only a few of those elite guys in the league, and he is one of them.
And so obviously now after Tuesday night, Memphis 7-19, long way to go. If playoffs started today, would be out of the playoffs. Obviously, like I said, long way to go. But that being said, with that in mind, is there real optimism that things are going to really turn around in Memphis now with him coming back, and of course Marcus Smart coming back soon too, which we'll get into in a sec. But we saw it last night, like you alluded to, Eli. Just how much more coherent the unit looked on the court with him back, and how much better the team seemed to play. And so there's a real optimism that the team is going to bounce up to that at least top 10 spot, despite the slow start they had in the start of the year this year.
Yeah, obviously there's a heck of a lot more optimism now than there was a couple of days ago, but it's if you look at it, obviously they would have loved to have won more games of those 25, and there were some disappointing performances in their games they probably should have still won. But in the end now, you're 7-19, so that's 56 games remaining for the season. Last year, you needed 40 wins basically to get into the play-in. If you assume that it's going to be pretty similar, that you got to be right around the 500 mark for the year. Well, 56 games, if you need to win 30, would be 35 of those, 34 of those, that's certainly doable when you look at that. 34-22 with Ja. If you do get Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, everybody's healthy. Now, granted, that relies on those guys staying healthy. Ja's not going to play every one of those games. We know that. He'll miss some along the way for various reasons. But if you stay relatively healthy with what you've got, certainly I think winning 34 games the rest of the way is very realistic. Last year, in games that Ja Morant played, they basically won 2 out of every 3. So if you do that and he plays, most of the games, if he plays, say, 50 of the remaining games, certainly they got an opportunity to get into that play-in. If they get into the play-in, they're certainly, again, if they're healthy at that point, going to be a very dangerous team that there will be a 1 or a 2 seed out there possibly in the Western Conference who's not going to be really thrilled if the Memphis Grizzlies are their first-round opponent. They're going to think they deserve better as a 1 or 2 seed. So they could strike up some fear into some team if they are able to get into that play-in and find their way in the playoffs.
Were you surprised that they struggled as much as they did? I mean, I know you just kind of alluded to it, but were you surprised they struggled as much as they did these first 25 games of the season? I mean, last year, Ja Morant missed time as well for the same issues he had in this past suspension, and the Grizzlies still finished second in the West. And I know you mentioned the injuries; that's been a big part of it, I'm sure. I mean, obviously Steven Adams is out, Brendan Clark's out, Evan Tillman's out, and Marcus Smart has yet to play yet. So, I mean, has that been pretty much the biggest injury or the biggest reason for the Memphis Grizzlies struggling so far? Has just been the injuries and just obviously, besides Ja Morant being out, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you look at while they've had Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, both have been healthy and playing. Certainly, and that's two really good players. Again, two borderline all-star players. But when you look at what's been around them, once Smart went out, Luke Kennard out, you started the season with Steven Adams out for the year, Brandon Clark out for the year. It's just difficult. I mean, you look at that roster some nights that they threw out there, and even when Jaren and Desmond had big games, there just wasn't enough support around them to win. Now, again, there were still some games they very well should have won. I mean, Houston is a terrible road team. The Grizzlies had a double-digit lead on them at halftime, and they blew that the other night. They let Utah come in to FedEx Forum and beat them twice. I mean, only one home win to this point. Yeah. That's the part that's probably the most surprising. I would have thought they could at least, you would steal a couple more of the home games. That's been very disappointing, and they've got to get back to what they were last year. That was a dominant home floor team the rest of the way if they're going to try and find their way into the playoffs. Yeah,
they had the best home record of any team last year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like they had the best home record of any team, I think, last year. Describe Bane. How's Bane been being the primary ball handler? Well, definitely the primary ball handler, but not even that, just the playmaker for the backcourt for the Grizzlies. How has he been able to handle that responsibility? I know he's, as you would expect, has a career high in turnovers right now, but also it has a career high in assists, which also you would expect for being the primary playmaker. But just how has he overall taken on that role, and how has he performed in that role?
He's been fantastic all year. I mean, and he has really, his game has evolved year after year after year. When he first came in the league, he was a great shooter, and that was kind of his game. But they have worked hard. He has worked really hard at becoming more of a playmaker, and he has done really well at that. But the thing with him is, without Ja, without Smart, all these guys, all the attention's on him and Jaren Jackson Jr. And so all the attention on the perimeter. So it's hard for him to find open shots because he doesn't have, they know that he's the best shooter on the team. Plus now he is really the main scorer, the main playmaker, everything. So defenses were geared towards trying to stop Desmond Bane. And still he's averaging 24 points and 5 assists. So it tells you how good he has been, but getting Ja back certainly makes it a lot easier on him in order to try and be the secondary guy. Once again is a way better role for him.
Yeah, go back to being that 3-point shooter that he's so good to be. I know that's been definitely something that's been taken away from him a little bit, given that he had to be more of the playmaker. Has that been true? I know that was a big part of his game last year, was just his ability to drain threes and be a lights out 3-point shooter for the Grizzlies. But has that kind of gone down? Has that production gone down but beyond the arc after him, taking on a different role with Morant being out?
Not really. I mean, he's still, she's shooting up around 40%. I think it's a little bit below 40% on the year. He's making 3.5, 4 threes per game. It's been a little more difficult again because teams are focused on him, and there's not that guy like Ja drawing all of the attention from him. But I do think, as with Ja back, and especially when these other guys get healthy and defenses have to continue to think more and more about them, then I think his shooting numbers will get even better, and he'll be back over 40% like he was.
Well, Eli, we mentioned injuries early in the interview, and I want to ask you about Brendan Clark and then especially Marcus Smart. Any indication as to when they might be expected to return to the lineup?
Well, Marcus Smart, Taylor Jenkins last week, I think it was last week, said that they were hoping Marcus Smart would be back sometime this week. He had said either the Indiana game, which is tomorrow night, or the Atlanta game, which is coming up this weekend. So, we're right at the 5-week mark. And when he first went out, they said 3 to 5 weeks. So the thought is he should be back this week. And then Luke Kennard, who's also been out, he's expected back probably next week. Brandon Clark coming off an Achilles injury. There's really no indication. There's hope that he will be able to return this season, but no real timetable on when that might be. Coming back from an Achilles injury to play basketball is always a questionable thing. So there's a chance he doesn't play at all this year, but they are hoping that he will be able to make it back at some point, probably late in the season.
All right. Yeah, that's. I know Steven Adams is still out for the rest of the season. Is that correct? He's going to be out for the rest of the season with that. I think he had knee surgery, right? His right knee he had surgery on his knee.
Yeah, he was a weird situation because last season when he got hurt, they originally announced that as a 3 to 5 week that he would be out. He ended up not ever being able to come back next year. Went through the off season. The thought was he was okay. He reported for camp, was okay. Played in a couple of preseason games, and then suddenly a couple of days before the season opener, they announced that he was going to have surgery and he was done for the year. So weird situation around Steven Adams, but yeah, he will not be back at all this season regardless.
Well, I know Evan Tillman's out now. Also, he was going to be the backup for Adams, and I think they brought in Biombo. How has Biombo been to kind of take up that space, take up that time that is missing with Adams and Tillman?
Biombo has been fantastic, and they made the decision that they're going to keep him for the rest of the year. They released Kenneth Lofton Jr. to create a roster spot once Ja Morant's suspension was over. And Biombo's been good. Like he does what he does. He's not much of an offensive threat, but they don't need him to be. They want him to rebound. They want him to block some shots. He went through a little bit of a bad stretch here recently, but last night he was good once again. Xavier Tillman is healthy right now, played last night and played pretty well. So hopefully, those two guys can hold down that center position. And Jaren Jackson Jr. can slide over and play center some as well when they go with Santi Aldama at power forward spot. So now they've got a good rotation of big guys in there. And certainly, again, they don't need much offense out of any of those guys other than Jaren Jackson Jr. They just need him to rebound and play defense, and that's all they're asking.
Well, Eli, I'm hoping for the best for the Grizzlies. I mean, they could. What do you think? They're going to be one of the hottest teams probably in January, February once they get their full lineup back and getting healthy again and getting into a flow again. It might take a little bit of time. Just my last question for you before we head on out here. I mean, are the fans pretty patient that with Morant being back and then Marcus Smart coming into the lineup that it might take a month or two to get the flow of things going again and get comfortable with each other, playing with each other, and it might take February or late February, early March until the team really starts cooking?
Well, that's obviously Ja and Marcus Smart have not played together in a backcourt. They've practiced, but they haven't played. But that the unfortunate part is they don't have time for that. They can't be patient because when you're 7-19, if you want to try and make the playoffs, you can't afford to really have any kind of a slow learning curve here. They're going to have to figure it out on the fly, and it's going to have to work. And that's unfortunate. It might be asking too much, but when you're talking about Marcus Smart, who's used to playing alongside superstars because he did it with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in Boston. He understands kind of how to play off of those types of players. Hopefully that helps his transition here. And it certainly can't hurt to have Marcus Smart healthy and alongside Ja Morant. But yeah, there's certainly, I think, will be a little bit of a learning curve. But again, they've got to win a lot of basketball games here over this final stretch of the season if they're going to try and find their way into the postseason.
Yeah, it's almost like a roll of the dice almost. We don't really know how they're going to play together once they start, taking that backcourt together. So it's going to be like, and you said, they don't have time. They don't have, well, not even time. They don't have that buffer to really be learning. They don't have a buffer to really be losing any more games here. They have to kind of learn fast and learn on the fly. And that's going to be what the fans expect going forward. So, well, Eli, this has been awesome. I really do appreciate your time again. This has been a fun talk, always is. And I loved you coming on, giving us some breakdown of the Grizzlies. And we're all excited to see Morant back. I mean, Grizzlies fan or not, he's the most exciting player in the league probably. So, I mean, we're all excited to see him back, and I'm excited to see how the Grizzlies do going on the stretch here.
You're not nearly as excited as the people in Memphis are to see him back. That's for sure.
I bet. And I'm sure he's learned his lesson, and we can expect smooth sailing going forward for
We
him. So
we hope for that as well. That's the biggest hope, is that
yeah.
lessons have been learned and we don't have to deal with any more of these issues.
Yes. All right, Eli. We'll be in touch, and we'll have you on again sometime soon. Okay.
Sounds great, man. Thank you. Always enjoy it.
All right. Thanks, Eli. Take care. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Sorry about the
All right.
technical difficulties, but no, I appreciate
No
your time.
problem, man. No problem at all. Have a good day, man.
Hey, you too. I'll be in touch. All right. Thanks again so much.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
Bye. Okay, let's finish up the show with our maker and faker of the week. Justin, what is your maker?
My maker of the week is the NFL streaming games on Peacock. I know it's not the best platform or even the best thing to do. I know streaming's popular, but commercial free is definitely a big thing. The NFL should consider more commercial free broadcasts to kind of limit the commercials. I know the money is driven off of the commercials and the TV sponsors, but this is a good step for the NFL and a good step for streaming, which might not be popular, but I think that streaming the games on Peacock is a big help for the NFL, and I'm going to give them the maker of the week and a good solution, having a commercial free broadcast or having less commercials on the Chargers versus the Chargers versus the Broncos? I'm sorry.
I believe so, yeah. This weekend.
Yeah, Chargers,
Broncos.
Yeah, Chargers, Broncos. I think that's going to be a good game, and I think that definitely the NFL should continue with commercial-free streaming and maybe even showing the players on the field during the warm-up, giving a little access in stadium. I think it's a good solution to have less, to basically drive the ads down by 40%.
The Broncos are actually playing New England.
Oh,
wait.
Yes.
Yeah. At Denver. Yeah.
Yes,
at
that's what I meant. My bad.
No, you're good.
I know.
My maker, Tommy DeVito. Didn't play very well Sunday, but obviously have been playing well up into last Sunday. But really, it's actions off the field that are making him a faker for me. He showed up at Coniglio's Old Fashioned in New Jersey after the pizza joint canceled his appearance, which was originally scheduled for Tuesday. He showed up for free after a dispute between DeVito's agent and the owner of the pizzeria. Over their conversation went public. DeVito's appearance at the Morristown, New Jersey pizzeria was scheduled over a week ago, but there were developments following the Giants' upset win over the Packers. Coniglio's Old Fashioned, the restaurant, announced it was canceling DeVito's appearance after it claimed his agent doubled the appearance fee from $10,000 to $20,000. DeVito is quickly becoming a fan favorite in New Jersey, and fans are rallying behind his team. Despite the little changes of making the postseason, he's been showing up on and off the field, and I think he's just an awesome story and one of the most fun stories to follow in the NFL so far. So, yeah, Tommy DeVito, my maker of the week, and for his showing up at local pizzerias for free and doing the right thing by the small business guy. I like it. I love it. Have to see it. Justin, what is your faker?
Faker of the week is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin has had a winning season. I know he's had 500, a season over 500 or better in his career, but I think this is the first year where the Steelers finished last place in his tenure and they have a sub 500 season. And that is not an excuse to be like, oh, I think we should keep Mike Tomlin. I think the Steelers should have fired him 5 years ago at least, maybe even more than that, with the way things are going. I know they want continuity, and I know continuity is good, but Mike Tomlin might need to be moved on from. He's been there for 13 seasons now, or 16 seasons as the coach of the Steelers, and it's time to move on, and it happens. Belichick might be time to move on from him in New England. Tomlin. I mean, there's coaches that sometimes you got to move on after 10 years, and you don't have to change everything up like the Browns or teams like the Jets every now and then and hire coaches every 4 years or less than that. But the Steelers might need to move on from Mike Tomlin if he has a sub 500 season, and I think that's a potential. I think that's potentially going to happen,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't
Steelers
read too much into it.
Steelers don't do that though. They don't fire coaches really ever. I mean, not especially. Well, it won't be midseason, but Steelers never really fire coaches. I think they've had since like World War II. They've had like what,
Three
three
coaches they've
over the
had:
last, like,
Noel,
yeah,
Cower, and
yeah,
Tomlin now.
yeah. It's been absolutely insane. So yeah, I mean, it's been they don't get rid of coaches. They don't move on from coaches, and I still think Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league, and he's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
But if he does, he could get
Speaking,
another job, let's say. I still think
oh
somebody's
my
going to
gosh,
swoop him
yes.
up.
Oh my gosh, yes, they would be dumb not to. He's like I said, he's still one of the best coaches in the league. Maybe just something with the Steelers. Maybe he just can't. He's lost the locker room with the Steelers. I don't. Who knows what it is? But if he went somewhere else, he would still dominate because he's still one of the best coaches in the league. That's no doubt about that. For my faker, I'm gonna stick with the Steelers as well. Pickens has been showing a certain lack of effort on a lot of plays this season. One in particular, bearing down this past Saturday when he did not block for running back Jalen Warren at the goal line stand in the first quarter when the Steelers played Indianapolis, of course. He got a lot of scrutiny for this. It showed his lack of effort. Once again, like I said, he's been showing a lot of lack of effort for a lot of plays this season, and this was the final straw for many Steeler fans. He mentioned the lack of wanting to get injured as the point of not blocking on that play. That's fair, but that's also, your job is to play football, and you shouldn't not wanting to get injured should not be your reasoning for not blocking. He did say that, running plays a lot of the times they do lead to injuries, especially on blocking at the goal line. So he did double down, blaming the media for changing the narrative about what he said to make it sound like he didn't want to get injured and not put in effort because of injury. But I think he should be spending more time and focusing more on getting open, catching balls, than for blocking for his teammates and blaming the media for basically spinning a narrative about him that isn't true. So he's my faker of the week for sure. And I just think it's an overall Pickens, not his best year, and he's been under the spotlight for Steeler fans for sure, given his lack of effort he's had over these years. All right, Justin, back on Saturday, going to have on Talk Orlando Magic with Jamie Say, excuse me. Awesome interview with her. Magic were second in the league, now fourth in the league, just after a little bit of a losing streak that they've had here, a 3-game losing streak, but still one of the best teams in the East right now. And we're going to talk to her about how they were able to do that and what they've been doing successfully. So, we'll see you Saturday. And without further ado, keep on traveling.